From the center of the universe, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, this is the SDM Show with your host, Rob Cairns. The SDM Show focuses on business, life, productivity, digital marketing, WordPress, and more. Sit back, relax, grab your favorite drink, and enjoy the show. Here is Rob.
Hey everybody, Rob Cairns here. I'm the founder, CEO, and chief creator of Amazing Ideas and Stunning Digital Marketing. In this podcast, I have my good friend, Stephanie Hudson with me. And we're going to talk a little AI, a little WordPress, and a pile of other amazing things, including outsourcing. Grab a drink, sit back, relax, and enjoy the conversation Stephanie and I had. This episode of the SDM Show is sponsored by Stunning Digital Marketing, the agency to handle all your WordPress website security needs. Go on over to stunningdigitalmarketing.com and find out how we can help you secure your website so you no longer have an issue with backups, being hacked, or your website being compromised. That's stunningdigitalmarketing.com. Hey everybody, Rob here again. And today I'm here with my good dear friend, Stephanie Hudson. How are you today, Steph?
Well, hey there, Rob. How's it going?
Oh, it's going good. And how are you doing today?
I'm doing just fine. I'm super excited to be here because I love to chat about all these geeky things with you.
Yeah, it's always a good conversation, whether it's on the podcast or on Facebook Messenger or in a text. They all go the same way, don't they? So,
absolutely.
So you're doing some work with a well-known WordPress company called Bertha.ai right now. What's going on up at Bertha?
I am. Bertha is an AI generator. It generates copy and images, and it works right inside WordPress as a plugin. And then just as of the beginning of February, it's also available now as a Chrome extension, which is also quite exciting.
Yeah.
That opens it up to a lot of things, right? Because then you can use it in any of your online tools, any of your Google Docs or anything like that, any of the Microsoft Online tools, PowerPoint, Docs, anything.
That's actually really cool. And I thought we'd dive into AI in general. There's been a lot of people saying, I don't like AI. AI is a problem. But what I'll say is, if you're a Photoshop user, you've been using AI for years. There's brushes built into Photoshop that do things automatically for functions. That's AI when you think about it. There's all kinds of photo products, Photoshop and non-Photoshop, that will remove backgrounds out of images. That's AI-based. We've got transcription tools that podcasters use, like Descript and Otter.ai famously. And believe it or not, even Microsoft Office 365 does transcriptions now. So that's AI-based. We were talking a little bit before the podcast about how I said I was doing some research on voiceover AI products. That's AI-based. So
that is, yeah.
Where is this whole AI mess going?
Well, without sounding overly dramatic, it's going to change everything.
Yep.
Everything in your life. If you're in the marketing space, building websites, doing social media, any of that, it's easy to see what's coming, that things are going to start changing dramatically in our industry and in our work life. But more than that, it's going to reach into really almost every aspect of our lives, honestly, and within a very short time period. There's the law, somebody's law that says that technology and like processing power doubles every 2 years, what could be done on a chip and things like that. And since AI has started to hit mainstream, they've said that law has now been broken because it's doubling its processing power every 6 months. So we are going to see an absolute explosion of artificial intelligence technologies arise. If you play with ChatGPT or the like, you can see how wild it is. And it can be fun or exciting or cool, but this is tip of the iceberg stuff. Like, this isn't even anything yet. What we're going to be able to accomplish with these tools and technologies is what's really going. And when they start to stack on top of each other, like combining different types of tools and different types of resources, then we're going to start. It's going to just be absolutely exponential.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's funny. I have played with ChatGPT. I've played with Bertha as well. I'll say that very much so. I did recently an experiment with ChatGPT where I said, okay, ChatGPT, tell me how to secure a WordPress website just for fun. Mm-hmm. What I'll tell you is it was really good from an intro perspective, but it wasn't good from an advanced perspective. I'll tell you that for sure. Mm-hmm. I posted the article on my blog and the first line was, this is an experiment written by ChatGPT on my business blog. And the subject was WordPress security from ChatGPT. And would you believe, as it always happens, somebody accused me of being clickbaity with that headline? I said, no. I said exactly what the article was, and I said from ChatGPT because I wanted people to understand I didn't write this. And that's not really clickbaity, but that was one experiment. And then I did another one the other night, which I'm about to post on my personal blog. And it was, who is Ken Dryden, who is the legendary hockey player, politician, writer that played for the Montreal Canadiens and lawyer. And ChatGPT actually got most of the facts of his career through different careers right pretty well. So that's kind of compelling a little bit.
So there are a couple things I want to throw in there with this is that, one, obviously the models, the underlying language models are only trained up until about September of 2022 so far for what we're talking about today. Mm-hmm. And so newer things that have happened are not, like a vulnerability that has appeared on the WordPress scene last month isn't going to be in its knowledge base. So it's not going to be able to react to that. But other than that, I think that the prompts are really, really where it's at. And by prompts, obviously, well, for those who aren't familiar, that's the information that you're putting into the AI. That's what you're asking them to do or prompting them to do, if you will. So whenever you're putting this information in, there are so many websites and services and even marketplaces selling prompts now that you can learn how to prompt effectively. There are actual jobs called prompt engineer. So when we think about all this stuff, it's to go back to your Photoshop illustration. You didn't just open up Photoshop the first time and create a masterpiece, right? You had to take time to learn how to use those tools, and that's not a small feat. Yep. So the same goes with these tools. Learning how to put in a prompt that gets the results that you want really is a skill that you need to learn and master. And the cool thing about the chat style AI interfaces like ChatGPT or in Bertha, there's a chat now, and a lot of them are starting to incorporate this, is that it can keep in mind what you've been talking about or what you already asked it to do. So without having to restate or start from scratch, you can ask it to iterate on what it's already done. So you could say, when it has security things, you could say, now act as if you are a security advisor for a major tech firm. How would you advise them to lock down their, very vulnerable website or, prevent it from getting maliciously attacked? Or, you can ask it different questions in different ways. And interestingly, you can also ask these tools to perform as if they are different people, different roles. They have different skill sets. You can ask it in those ways, and it's almost like it adopts those personas. So, for example, if you wanted it to give you basic stuff, that's one thing. But if you wanted, you're advanced in WordPress security and tech, so you can handle it if they start dropping some lingo on you and some highly technical components or strategies and things like that. So, if you ask it to speak to you as if they are this high-level security expert. It would be interesting to see the difference. And maybe we should go and put that into ChatGPT in on your conversation, and then have ChatGPT leave a comment on your post.
That's funny. Yeah, there's a running joke. You and I both know Mark Westgard really well.
We sure do,
and he's a good friend of mine and yours. I'll say that very upfront. And he was on This Week in WordPress with Nathan Wrigley with me 2 weeks ago, and Mark didn't write his bio, so Nathan, as a joke, put in the bio, this bio was written by AI.
I love it.
I love it. And the ongoing joke is every time I ask Mark a question for about the last 2 weeks is, this is being answered by ChatGPT and not Mark Westgard. So
we're going to have there's going to be a new acronym, like, let me Google that for you. Like that website, LMTGFY. It's like, we're going to have let me ask ChatGPT for you.
Yeah. So I want to throw something out there.
In fact, I need to go register that domain. That's a good one.
Yeah, real quickly before this show airs. So real quickly, before we kind of move on a little bit and get into some specifics, I think AI, and maybe I'm wrong, and it does more, but it's really an advanced search engine when you think about it. And somebody said to me, it's not a search engine. I said, of course it is. It has search facilities built into it. So the question becomes, is AI going to knock on Google's domination of the search business?
Yes and no. What Google needs to be a little bit more concerned about right now, though, hilariously to me, is they got to watch out for Bing for the first time ever.
Yes.
Which is absolutely nuts for any of us. Like, I used to always joke around with people being like, let me go Bing that for you instead of Google it, because literally nobody says that. But I think it's different. I don't think it's going to eliminate search, but it's going to change everything, as I said. So it's certainly going to impact SEO, for example. So if you're optimizing your website to be found in a search, but people aren't searching as much because they can just go ask a question. So if somebody, you wrote a blog post on security, someone could search for that and land on your site and then see your call to action and become your customer or get on your mailing list or whatever. Now, if they are going to search for things, or not search for things, but go and just ask an AI bot for the answer, that's a completely different thing. So that changes the world of SEO in that, what are we now optimizing our websites for? And so I think what will come soon is optimizing our websites for AI. And how that will look, I'm not really sure. But obviously, if we're going to have AI feed answers directly to people, it's a little bit like those little answer panels in Google right now. Those answer panels come up, and website owners don't like that because then they don't click through. They just get their answer right there. So they're not visiting the site, so the site's not getting traffic.
I don't like them either. Yeah.
So it's a problem for traffic when you're talking about SEO. And so there's that. There's those kind of impacts that are going to be astronomical in our industry of web and marketing, for sure. But when it comes to asking a question or searching, I think the one example I've given, we were talking about this in our weekly focus group in the Facebook group for Focus WP. We like to chat about all these geeky things. And the example I gave, and I just did it right on the screen, is like looking for a margarita recipe. So if you want a recipe, you can go to ChatGPT and say, what's a recipe for a margarita? Or I have these ingredients. How could I make a margarita with them? You can do those things, no problem. And you will get one answer. You could say, give me 5 different recipes, but we are so drawn to social proof and public opinions and group think at this point that if you just get that answer, like, sure, that might make a great margarita. They all might be, but But what if you went on to Google and searched margarita recipes? You're going to get literally hundreds of thousands of results. And you can scroll through the first page just alone and say like, oh, some of these, this one's from my favorite tequila brand. Or, oh, it looks like that one adds a splash of orange juice. Let me see what they're going to say. Or, like you could kind of scan through things. You can go and read and say like, oh, I think this one would be more to my liking. You can get multiple people's opinions, which is not what you're going to get from, asking ChatGPT. So in that way, it's different than search. But so it's not an exact replacement, but it is going to impact how much people are using search versus just asking a question.
And the other problem with ChatGPT is you almost have to use it at off hours right now. There's no point in trying to get at it between the business day. And just to make my point, as you were talking, I decided maybe we should bring ChatGPT up. And what do I get? A message saying ChatGPT is at capacity.
Well, you can always go see Bertha. Your girl Bertha will still talk to you. She's never too busy for you, Rob.
Yeah, I know. I know. I do have an in with the Bertha crew, I think, too. So that's okay.
As a matter of fact, you just might. Yeah.
So let's go there, which was where I was going to segue into. So we have ChatGPT out there that does a really good job, and they're not charging for it now. And
they are actually. They've started charging. Well, there is a free version, but you can now pay for it, which will get rid of those waits.
Will you get rid of it? So why should somebody go get Bertha and not use ChatGPT? Do tell.
Yeah, sure. Well, Bertha isn't the only tool out there either. There's just an absolute flood of apps coming. So why would you use any of these? Well, so for an app like Bertha, and I don't mean this as a sales pitch. I mean this as like, let me help you understand how these things work. So when it's largely about two things to my way of thinking. One is the prompts, and the second thing is the interface. So if you use Bertha, if you're using it to write your website, Bertha's right there inside it. So you can generate the copy and dump it straight into your post, into any Gutenberg block, into anything, page builder, anything. So there's a convenience level to the interface and to where it's located right inside your website. That's one thing. Secondly, if you go to ChatGPT, you have to come up with all of the things you're asking for. Whereas if you go to an app like Bertha, which is geared toward website development and website writing, it will have pre-trained prompts like write me an outline for a blog post. And then you just have to fill in the fields. Write me a paragraph about this. Write an about page for me. And it will just ask you for the critical information that it needs. And then boom, it'll just put it all there. So you don't have to become a prompt engineer in order to get what you want out of it, because we've taken that on ourselves and we've trained those models in how to format that text that it gives back to you.
Yeah. Now, going into that, so I'm going to play devil's advocate here, and I know what the answer is. I know what the answer is. We're now adding another thing inside the WordPress dashboard, and we're going to slow our site down. And my argument for years has been, if your hosting is that bad, go get some better hosting. Don't worry about adding stuff to your site. So we've gone through this discussion with products like Groundhog, Fluent CRM, both in the CRM space. We've gone through this discussion when people have added help desk type software into their dashboard, like the awesome help desk, I think is one. We've gone through this discussion with WooCommerce when people have added Woo software, e-commerce to their WordPress dashboard. And I would argue Bertha is the same. So anybody who's crying about, oh, my site's too slow, go get some proper hosting, please.
Sure. Or just use the Chrome extension.
Yeah.
Then you don't have to use the plugin. It works off your same account. And you can use it right. If you're using Chrome to build your website, it's just floating right over top of it rather than inside it.
Yeah. I would agree, but I would also agree that if your site is so bad, maybe you need to look at what you've put it on top of. It's like trying to put it's trying to put fast features on top of a little shipbox car. Yeah, I can say that's my podcast. Versus putting them on top of a Ferrari with a Ferrari engine, if you get what I'm saying, right? So if the base isn't there, it doesn't matter what you put under the hood, it ain't going to help you.
Right.
Okay. So that's a little bit about AI. Did you have anything else you want to add in the AI space stuff?
Well, if I may have a little shameless plug, I started an AI newsletter.
Good.
If anybody wants to jump on board with that, it's called The Sizzle. It's thesizzle.ai. And I just send out 7 things. Whenever 7 things fill up my little notepad, I put them in the newsletter and I send them out. And it's geared for folks who are AI curious, I guess, and tech curious. Not super geeks. It's not overly technical or complex. It's not a lot of the deep underlying code stuff. It's just about how this is starting to come into mainstream. So that's my audience. There's a lot of newsletters out there currently. A lot of them are very, very geeky or just random lists of tools. But this is I use my dad as my ICP. So I'm writing it with my dad in mind because he loves all this stuff too, but he's very overwhelmed by the technology. And he's not in tech, so he doesn't really get it, but he knows it's cool. And so I write to sort of explain things that are starting to come to mainstream.
That's really cool. So the other thing I wanted to at least jump into before we get into a little potpourri, as I call it, or a mixed bag of stuff, was let's talk about outsourcing in a WordPress space a little bit. And it's something dear to my heart and yours. For those who don't know, I do security plan work for a number of agencies. So I have my own clients, and then I've got some. When should you outsource, and why should you outsource?
That's a big question that doesn't have a real simple answer. I actually give a talk on this that we work, our little workshop I can do where we build a grid, and basically you want to consider what are the things that you are doing and what are the things that you should be doing. So obviously you want to do things that bring you joy, but what if you love to design, but you're not really that good at it or code or whatever? You can fill in the blank with any of those things. If it's not something that you're really particularly good at, that might be something that's best to be delegated. If it's something that you don't like to do and aren't good at, that's a no-brainer right there. That's outsourcing, which is why most people outsource accounting because very few people like to do that. And most of us aren't good at it. So that's a no-brainer right there. There is a little bit more nuance to it when you get down into the nitty-gritties because, it's your business. If there's something that maybe you're not real efficient at or the best at, but you want to do it, it's your business. So you can still make your choices as you want. There's obviously issues of profitability to consider. There's so many factors that go into it, but the real quick and easy first step is, what do I hate? What slows me down? What do I procrastinate? Like that sort of type of question. And that I'm also not very good at. Those should be on the cutting block immediately to get off of your to-do list.
Yeah, that's a really good idea, actually.
Yeah.
And I mean, the other thing people outsource a lot is legal stuff because none of us have the knowledge to navigate the legal system. Right. And then where we see it a lot with agencies is they'll outsource a number of things. Project management sometimes.
Yeah.
They will outsource very often like security updates like I do. They will even outsource development or SEO under like white label type programs. That's very common as well.
For sure. Yeah. So I have a company called Focus WP. I know you know about it, but I don't know if your listeners do. And we are basically an outsourced service provider. So we have an agency team. We've got developers, copywriters, designers, video editors, SEO, VAs. We've got the whole gamut. And agency owners. We only serve agency owners, not business owners or website, not the individual website owners. We cater toward solopreneurs and agencies that are looking to scale, and they can come in and outsource to us, which has a few benefits. One is that you're not just looking for some stranger on Fiverr and crossing your fingers that he or she doesn't ghost on you. It's more established, and we have a team and we've trained them and all that stuff. But also that we have multiple service offerings also. So, and we have quality control built in and things like that. And so the two main scenarios that we see, which sort of expands a little bit on your previous question, is we see folks that either maybe they can handle, like they're doing all the things, but once they hit a certain threshold, they just only have so much time in the day. So they might just need more hands on deck. Even if it's things that they are good at or want to do or should be doing, they just need more hands on deck so they can outsource those things. And secondly, what we'll see a lot of is folks who would like to add on additional services that aren't in their wheelhouse. So somebody who is building websites but isn't an SEO guru and wants to outsource that and add that on as a service offering that they can provide white label to their clients. So that's another those are the two sort of scenarios that we see most commonly.
Yeah. In your outsourcing business, what is your retention on customers? Is it like 50% or is it higher? Is it lower? Do you know, ballpark?
Man, I wish I knew these numbers. You could have given me a heads up, Rob. You're going to ask me.
I know. I wasn't
these kind of numbers.
You don't have
we have good retention. I don't know the exact number. Okay. I would say at least 50% though. We're not subscription based or anything like that. It's just pay as you go. Yep. So for folks to come in and buy a block of hours and then they can use them up over the course of the year. So, but very few people just never come back. Once we get on and they're like, oh, this is pretty easy. I could just send any question and I just have a team of devs that can go figure this out. Like that, it's just becomes such a convenience that we don't usually lose too many people.
Yeah. So let's jump into a little bit of what I call WordPress potpourri, i.e. a smorgasbord worth of stuff. You're a Divi gal. I know that.
I am. Mm-hmm.
But we do have this lingering thing called Blocks, Gutenberg, and full-site editing kicking around. Mm-hmm. Have you avoided it? Have you switched? Have you played with it? Where do you sit in that forefront?
As much as I am involved in the WordPress space, I have an agency, I have Focus WP, like it's all like WordPress web development is the center of both of those businesses. And yet I am now to the point where I don't do a lot of the building anymore. So it doesn't impact me that much. I will say I keep tabs on it. Like I am very, very interested to see where things go. I think it's all heading in a positive direction, though it's been a fairly slow climb. But I made a decision when I started using Divi like forever ago. I don't know, like how many years old Divi is. It's been like 8 or 9 years or 10 years now. I was already using Elegant Themes, other products, and they released the Divi theme, which was revolutionary. Really, this was like there weren't a million builders everywhere at the time. This was a big deal. And then as new ones started to pop up, it's so easy to get the shiny object syndrome, and think like, I want to go play with that. I want to check that out. I want to buy a new toy. Everything's on AppSumo for a lifetime deal. Like you could get so sucked into all of that. And I just made a decision right then and there, like, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to stick with Divi. Is Divi perfect? No. Does it have flaws? Yes. Does every other builder also have flaws? Yes. So, like it works for me and I know it. And I have all of the additional tools and things that you clamp onto it and things that you use with it and all of that stuff, and I didn't want to have to buy all of that for multiple things. And I just wanted to be able to know one really well. And it's especially useful to me because I'm not in there every day. So if I do have a site that I need to jump in, or I want to jump in and just do a little tweaking, or, build my own, like when I started this newsletter, like I just built my own site because it was fun. And it's a little fun side project for me. Right. So, so there's those reasons that I get in there and I still can do things. I am absolutely not anti Goot. And I think full site editing is important. But as far as like becoming an expert on it or diving into some of the tools related to that, I really just haven't yet. What's your thoughts on it?
I dove into Gutenberg about 1.5 years ago. I did it the hard way, not the easy way. I took a large agency site, mine, that at the time had over 200 blog posts. And I converted on a live site because of the 200 blog posts and the fact I was putting out a couple podcasts every week. So to try and keep a dev site and a live site in sync, I wasn't doing that. So I just went at it step by step. I think if you're going to go into the Gutenberg full FSC route, is to standardize on a set of plugins and an ecosystem very quickly. So don't jump all over the place. Say, if you're going to go with Generate Blocks, go with Generate Blocks and Generate Press. If you're going to do what I did and go with Cadence Theme and Cadence Blocks, and decide real quickly. What I'll also say is Gutenberg is just another page builder, except that the one that WordPress endorses. So it's really a page builder. The reason I did it was site speed. It did make a difference to site speed numbers. And that was something, I'm talking 10 points, sometimes 14. So stuff like that. It does take some working to get used to. But once you get into it, it's like any other page builder. You learn how to use the tool you know best, and you learn how to use it well. And that's the important thing.
Well, that's kind of what I was trying to say, only not as eloquently as you did.
Yeah. And there's too many of us in this dev space. And you're right. They go to AppSumo. Oh, what's the shiny new tool today? This one. I'll buy it. And then
listen, don't get me wrong. I'm an AppSumo fan. Like, I love AppSumo. But you have to understand what you're doing there, though. You have to understand what AppSumo is and how it works. And that sometimes, like, I have multiple apps that I still use daily, weekly, if not daily, in my business that I got a lifetime deal on. And it's been a huge cost savings. But there's tons that have just withered away as well, so.
I have one right now, a backup security plugin I was testing from 1.5 years ago. And I'm not going to call out the name. And they sent all kinds of emails out recently saying, we're restructuring, we're doing this, we're doing that. And I'm like, okay, that's $40 gone. No problem.
Well, sometimes what you have to do, like, there is a thing that I like to think of as the power of the sumo links. So sometimes you need to just invest in an LTD on AppSumo because it's cheap. And then because those people on AppSumo are brutal. Like, I don't think I have the self-confidence to handle that if I released a product to put it in AppSumo, because those people are they're so demanding and they want everything and they want it for cheap or free. So what they do is they just like crush these developers that come in. But what happens a lot of times is they help make it better. So what they're getting is a real world testing scenario and tons of feedback. So a lot of times, like the AppSumo effect is that they've got a new product that might be kind of buggy or a little weak, and then it ends up becoming a lot better. So if you can buy something and then give it a few months to mature, or a year even, and then go back and look at it, and if they haven't folded or gone under, then, a lot of times it actually has gotten to become a very useful thing.
I would agree with you. I mean, one of my favorite, actually my number one AppSumo buy is a product called TidyCal. And TidyCal is an AppSumo original, but it's a scheduling product. And it allows you to set up meetings and times. And it's the Calendly killer because when I bought it, I paid $29.99 US lifetime instead of Calendly $10 a month. So it's kind of the Calendly killer. And, people forget it's there, and, that's just the way it is. So
TidyCal is actually an AppSumo app. Like, they made that. They have a few that they've made. Yeah, they have a few that they've made, and that's one of them. So it's just always, it doesn't ever go away from the site.
So true. And the other thing worth mentioning is with tools is what people need to do. And it's something I look at. I'm sure you look at in your agency. How many tools do I own? And how many do I really need to add? And do I need to switch tools? Because we all have friends out there. Oh, the next tool comes out, I'm going to change project management tools. And it's like, that just kills your productivity like nothing.
Yeah. I find that I fall into those patterns in a couple scenarios. One is if I'm really procrastinating what I'm doing. If I'm really procrastinating something, I'm like, you know what? You know why I'm not doing this? It's because I need to have a new tool that I have to learn completely how to use it and set up every little thing and customize the whole thing. And then I'm sure I'll write that proposal or whatever it is that I'm procrastinating, and it never works. So that's one scenario. And the other scenario that I find myself out there scrolling and looking is if my systems aren't really serving me. So if your systems aren't serving you, then it's easy to try and look for a magic bullet that's going to fix everything. And that's just very rarely the case. I sort of had this realization, unfortunately, after the fact. Like I had a realization that wow, I haven't bought anything on AppSumo in a long time. Like I don't really feel that same temptation. And I think it's because I've gotten my businesses a little bit more organized and in shape, and I'm just using the tools I have, So anyway, that's my little philosophical view of AppSumo.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with you. And then the other subject that's really hot in our space right now is this whole Twitter versus Mastodon thing. Elon came in, he took over Twitter. A lot of the devs have disappeared off Twitter. Good, let them go. Because the dirty little secret is all the end users are not on Mastodon. Mastodon's kind of a site for geeks, really. So they're still, if they're on Twitter, they're still playing on Twitter. So the way I look at it is, the more devs that disappear, the more for Rob.
Right.
What do you think?
I don't know. I just sort of feel like that was just a whole lot of hubbub. I feel like I'm on Twitter and I use it. I think it's great for certain connections and certain niches and things like that. But it's just such a different vibe there than on other platforms. I just feel like everybody just wants to be mad on Twitter. And so I think oh, Elon Musk bought it. Well, let's all be angry about that. And we're out of here, blah, blah, blah. Okay. All right, sure. Whatever you want to do. But then there are so many people posting on Twitter about how they're not on Twitter anymore. It just cracks me up, And so I don't know. It's not like I abandoned ship. I'm not overly active on there. I do think it's fun to watch all of that stuff happening and seeing if it is going to melt down. But and honestly, Mastodon, I just don't have it in me. I think I'm full up on social platforms. I don't have any more in me right now.
My bandwidth is already done. So
I'm full up. Yeah, I can't.
And then the last kind of subject I wanted to touch on, and you run an agency and I run an agency, is the dreaded word that starts with S called security. And this one's worth touching on because we all know what happened with LastPass. You'd had to be under a rock for the last 3 months not to notice that one. And I know people have posed the question time and time again, should you use a password manager? My answer is yes. If you're concerned about your passwords in a password manager, and this is a tip I got from my friend Kathy Zan, is throw on a word at the end of it that you don't put on the password manager that you add to every password.
Right.
So
like
that would
little kicker on your passwords that you put in there. I don't do that. I'm not a particularly paranoid person, but I do care about security, obviously. So with your background in security, I have a question for you, Rob.
Sure.
I know this is your show, but I want to ask you a question. What are the chances that, because I've seen this happen in other scenarios. So LastPass screwed up. They really did. Like, they had an issue and then they weren't fully transparent, straightforward about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it didn't end there and it kept going. And so that was a mess. It was a big mess. And they lost a huge, like, I can't even imagine how much of a portion of their user base jumped ship, or is still in process of jumping ship, as I kind of am. But what are the chances that they will end up being better than some of the alternatives because of what they just went through?
There is a chance, but I think they're done, personally. I moved away from them over a year and a half ago. I saw the writing.
Yeah, you use Bitwarden, right?
Yeah, I'm a Bitwarden fan. Yep. No, I moved a year and a half ago, though, because I saw too many management changes, and too many management changes in a security company are a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
So I think in LastPass's case, it doesn't matter if they're better. They're dead in the court of public opinion and might end up being bankrupt by the time it's all done. So that's the first thing. The other thing is it's the lack of transparency. We're going through it here in Canada right now. There's a bookstore chain called Chapters Indigo, like they're the national book store chain. Their website has been down for a week and have not been able to create payments. Anything that was ordered from the website before the hack has not been processed. It's just a mess. And they have no idea on timeframes. And not only that, up until yesterday or day before, they weren't taking debit or Visa card payments in their stores. So it was cash only. And they haven't been transparent. This happens a lot where companies think, we'll just, I don't know if they outright lie or they just deceive. Same thing. And then they just don't go there. And we have this problem in the WordPress space with plugins. I've heard of cases where plugin developers have argued with security companies about the security companies threatening to release the data on the vulnerability of their plugins. That happens.
Yep.
And it becomes, if you're not going to be transparent, what do you do about it? And this is going to sound self-serving, but it's really not. If you decide to DIY your website, do it yourself, go ahead. But don't DIY your security because you can't anymore. Somebody trying to DIY security doesn't have their nose to the ground and doesn't understand what the landscape is and what's going on. And the landscape is getting real rough. I actually dubbed this year as the year of the vulnerability. I think we're going to see lots, to be honest.
What do you think has changed to cause that?
One, the way governments force companies to disclose. That's part of it. Two, the users are fed up with companies who don't disclose. So that's the problem with LastPass. They disclose 2 days before Christmas, by the way. Not good.
Yep.
Three, the consumer wants to be validated, not ignored or dismissed. And when you don't disclose, you ignore and dismiss it.
Right. Yeah,
and
well said.
I kind of have a saying now, and this is going to seem odd from somebody who spends time in the security space. It's not if you'll be hacked, it's when, and how are you going to recover out of that hack. I really think so. The point I'm making is if small companies don't see the big companies struggling, how does a small entrepreneur manage his website who has no clue when an IT company the size of LastPass or Google Five or T-Mobile can't manage theirs? It's an interesting problem. So.
It is. I do think there's different risks if you are, a local boutique versus a huge corporation as far as targeting.
I agree.
Impacts of a hack and things like that. But so when you say no one should manage security themselves, you mean like our customers, like as WordPress agencies and things like that. You mean our customers shouldn't do it themselves, which is obvious, or you mean we shouldn't even do it for our customers?
No, our customers shouldn't do it ourselves, and all the people who DIY their WordPress site shouldn't do it themselves because they don't have the skill set to do it. It's getting hard.
They don't. Yeah.
So,
we're upgrading all of our security stuff with Focus WP. So for our maintenance customers, particularly, we've been hardening a bit, as they say in the biz, adding on some more features, more firewall things and things like that they can opt into and so forth. And I sent out a secure newsletter called Watch Out Wednesday. Did you know this?
No, I did not.
We sort of scraped together from a bunch of the, like WordFence has a thing and iThemes has a thing. Like there's a bunch that have these sort of vulnerability newsletters. And so we do them as a Facebook post and an email newsletter every week on Wednesdays, obviously, that shows like what you got to look out for. And if you have these on your site, make sure they're being updated.
Yep. I mean, I know at the time in this record today, the iThemes list had 80 vulnerabilities that they came up with. 80. Yep. And the average business owner wouldn't even be looking at that. And that's
for sure.
It's not their job. And it's just
right. But it's great news, really. It's great news because we're capable of doing that, right? This is a valuable service that we can add. And when you're adding value, you get compensated for it. So you could talk to your customers about their security. What does it cost? What would it cost you, especially folks that have e-commerce or things like that going on or running ads on their sites? Yep. What's the cost? What would you lose if your site went down for 1 day, 3 days, a week, and it makes it a lot easier to price that.
I had a former client who's now a current client who decided, who got ticked off at me one day and had a developer move the site from under my nose and canceled his contract. Okay.
Oh boy.
No, not oh boy. He was, and this happened right before the Canadian Thanksgiving weekend last weekend. And this particular client makes somewhere between $10,000 and $12,000 a day off a WooCommerce store. So we're talking good money.
Yeah.
Well, what happened? His site got hacked the Friday of the long weekend. And he dealt with his current developer, who was a pain in the you-know-where. And then he called me and said, what are you going to do? And I said, well, first of all, you're not my client. And second of all, it's a long weekend, so call me Tuesday. So he was down Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
Oh,
there was only two known.
You didn't even offer him a quadruple emergency rate or anything?
No, I was mad. No. Not at all.
Brutal.
And I knew there was only two known existing backups to his site. The one that I handed to the new developer because I like to do a clean handoff, and the one that I had, but he's not my client. Anyway, the long and short of it was the new developer lost the backup I handed over, so there was only one known backup. And one of the things I said to him is, why did you let this known developer throw you on cheap hosting? And he said, I'm trying to save money. I said, you're making $12,000 a day. You should be on hosting that you're paying like $100 a month for, $150 a month for. That's a drop in your bucket. Like, you got to start to look at what the site is worth to you and how much is it generated.
You know whose fault this all is?
Whose?
Danica Patrick.
Oh, don't go there.
It is those old GoDaddy commercials where they were putting up like geeky technical stuff for just normal everyday people, and they put a hot chick on there who was a race car driver, and it's $3.99 to host your website. So that's just locked in as in people's minds, whether it's subconscious or conscious, that's how much website hosting costs.
And by the way, and go to our website to watch the rest of the X-rated video that we can't show you on TV. Remember?
I forgot about that one.
Now I got to throw a throw out since we're joking about GoDaddy, because GoDaddy today, and I don't know where you sit, but I know in some of their high-end stuff, so like their managed WooCommerce hosting and things like that, they are not the GoDaddy of yesteryear by any means.
No, they're not.
They have actually done a really good job to reinvent themselves, and that whole team has made an effort. Whereas some hosts, as you know, don't do a good job. And I'm not going to mention them, but, you know. And then you've got guys like me who run servers in a managed data center. And I'll tell you how fussy my data center is. If you go and enter your WP admin, which is your password for your WordPress dashboard, wrong 7 times, it's going to lock you out. And it's not only going to lock you out of the site, it's going to lock you out of the server and ban your IP address. And that just stops things like brute force attacks, multiple login attacks, things like that. And I know it's an inconvenience for the site owner, but joy, if a site owner can't remember their password, they've got bigger problems than that at the end of the day, personally.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I just think the security problem is getting worse and not better. And that's just, it's good for you and I, but it's not always good for the end user, per se.
Right. And it sometimes can be hard to convey to people because it's a little bit like, sounds like insurance, like where you have to pay for something that you might need, because you're paying for all the security in case you might get attacked. It's hard for people to understand the many different ways that a WordPress site can become vulnerable.
Yep, so true. Since we're just kind of talking general WordPress stuff, is there anything you want to add?
Oh my goodness. General WordPress stuff. I don't know. Nothing.
Besides join Stephanie's Focus WP group and come out to the 5 o'clock.
Focus on Your Biz, it's called. Focus on Your Biz in Facebook. Rob hangs out there with us some Thursdays.
I do.
It's a good bunch, isn't it?
Yeah. If I'm around, I try to. Do you do a weekly Zoom call? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm interested in, growing a space. It's called Focus on Your Biz because I was struggling. It's been around for a few years now, but I was struggling for a while where it's like there's a Facebook group for every single plugin or, bit of CSS that you want to find, like all the technical things all have a WordPress group, or SEO has a WordPress, like so many different ones, or for copyright, for this, that. But what about like just the business of running a WordPress business? Like there wasn't any like place for that really to go and say like, how do you guys handle your bookkeeping or your billing or your proposals or your mental health whenever you're overwhelmed because you're an entrepreneur, or, like all of those things that didn't really fit into those other spaces. I'm in a lot of Divi groups. I was from the very beginning. They all were super useful when I was learning Divi and things like that. But it started to get to where there was like NDR was in all the groups. It was like not Divi related. And it started to get, there was so many not Divi related things that they started a new group called NDR, because it was basically the same thing. Like it's not an easy thing to be an entrepreneur. It's not an easy thing to be alone. And, if you work from home or you go sit someplace else and work, whatever, it's like you're kind of on this journey alone. And it's just a really useful thing to have community around you that isn't your customers or your family, to have people that like get it. And we'll see so much, like every Thursday, we usually start out by asking if anybody has a win that they want to share, or if there's, something that they're really struggling with that we can help. And we keep it private. We don't record it or anything like that. And it's fascinating to me, Rob, that like you've seen it happen too. People will talk about a problem and multiple people will be like, oh, I've been there. I know what that's like. Or yeah, that's really frustrating. Or, oh, I feel for you. And once that happens, like there won't even have been a solution yet. And that person will already start to feel better.
Yep.
Like I don't know if it's a misery loves company or it's like you start to realize like, okay, it's not just me. Like I'm not failing. There's so much imposter syndrome among particularly new developers, but even, people that have been in business for a long time. And I think it's a lot to do with isolation / social media, where everybody only puts, you're comparing somebody else's highlight reel to your worst case scenario, that sort of concept. And so it just can be really discouraging. And I know you care a lot about mental health, and I don't want to get too deep into it, but I think just even on a very light surface level of that topic, it's like, it's just good to have community. And I think WordPress does a pretty good job of that. I don't know how many other software platforms have absolute global communities that, it's really fascinating and a cool thing. Like I was in Europe last year. I went to WordCamp Europe and got to meet tons of cool people and lots of fun parties and things like that. It really is and you see people of I know there's issues with diversity and inclusion, but like you see so many different kinds of people and different personality types and all that kind of stuff, people with different hobbies and all that. And it's just such a cool group to be a part of.
No, I would agree. I think what makes working in WordPress special is our community. We both run groups. You run, your group on Facebook. I co-run a large group on LinkedIn, as many people know.
Mm-hmm. I'm in that group.
You are. And it's so the community makes it what it is. I always say to people when they say, what do you think of the community? And I say, it's one of the reasons I still work in WordPress to this day is because of the community. And I don't think anybody's not reachable. I think of this podcast and I've had automaticians on. I've had Matthias Ventura, who's the lead developer and the lead for Gutenberg on. I've got Anne McCarthy coming on with me next week to talk about WordPress 6.2. She's one of the release leads right now.
You landed Stephanie Hudson, for God's sake.
I've landed you.
Come on.
So I'll give everybody the dirtiest little secret though of podcasting.
What is it?
And that is, if I've got a guest on with me, and we'll pick on Stephanie because she's here today for an hour.
I can take it.
I can ask any question I want, which gives me my own private little Q&A masterclass any day of the week.
Even better than that, Rob, you get to ask the question, not like, oh, I'm pathetic and don't know anything. You're like, my audience would like to know this.
Yes. It's true, though. And it's so true.
It is. It's awesome.
And it builds community. And that's the other reason. Like, it's so funny. And I look at, I was talking to Birgit Polyhack, Gutenberg Times, on Twitter the other day. And she's like, you're just so great with the community. And that's, it's not just me. It's a multitude of people like yourself.
It is.
Like me.
You are a genuinely caring human being, though.
Thank you.
Like, guys, don't pay attention to that story where he left that guy's site down for 3 days. Rob's a nice guy.
Yeah, thanks.
No, he is. You are a genuinely kind human being, and I appreciate that about you. And I think that, you're one of those ones that makes WordPress a nice space to be in.
Oh, I so appreciate that. And on that note, if somebody wants to get a hold of your staff for Talk Outsourcing or anything like that, what's your favorite channel these days?
My favorite channel, I hate email so much. We do have a chat on our website, focuswp.co. You can hit us up there. I'm on Facebook all the time. Like if you join in the group and message me on Facebook, that's a great place. I am also on Twitter as Stepherific, which I assume you can put in the show notes for the spelling of it. So I'm in all the places except Mastodon.
Yeah, me too.
I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on all the things. But that's the end. No more.
No more.
You know, like that expression, no new friends, like no new social networks.
No, the bandwidth is done.
Am I old? Am I old? Did I just get old? Is that what happened? And I just can't take it anymore?
Yes. Stephanie, thanks. Amazing. And have a wonderful day.
Thanks, Rob. Great to talk to you.
This episode of the SDM Show is sponsored by Stunning Digital Marketing, the agency to handle all your WordPress website security needs. Go on over to stunningdigitalmarketing.com and find out how we can help you secure your website so you no longer have an issue with backups, being hacked, or your website being compromised. That's stunningdigitalmarketing.com. A very special thank you to Stephanie Hudson for joining me on this edition of the SDM Show. Thank you for listening to this edition of the SDM Show. The SDM Show is brought to you by Rob Cairns and Stunning Digital Marketing. For more information about Rob Cairns and Stunning Digital Marketing, go to stunningdigitalmarketing.info. From here, you can connect to us on social media, go to our website, and even go to the podcast to subscribe. This podcast is dedicated to my late father, Bruce Cairns. Dad, I miss you very much. Keep your feet on the ground. Keep reaching for the stars. Make your business succeed.